So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different again. I'll actually be commentating, and this is for a draft league battle I'm in. And for those that don't know, basically what happens in draft league is that each players take turns drafting a Pokemon or picking them. Once a Pokemon's picked, the other players cannot pick that Pokemon. So for this one, we picked 10 Pokemon. So for my pick, it was Mega Gallade, Blaziken, Gliscor, Comfey, Steelix, Licky Licky, Aerodactyl, Quillfish, Slowbro, and Scrafty. Now, for my week 1 opponent, their draft was Mega Aggron, Salamence, Reuniclus, Dust Lycanroc, Delphox, Mr. Mime, Rhydon, Florges, Roserade, and Hariyama. For week 1, I felt like the biggest threat was Mega Aggron because of its really good physical defense. And the majority of my team the majority of my draft is mostly physical attackers. So I do have Blaziken, which could deal with Aggron, but I feel like my opponent could bring Assault Vest Thick Fat Hariyama as a Blaziken check. And so for my draft, you can see what I picked, and if I'm being honest, a lot of these EVs are pretty random with the exception of Blazikens. I'm Rash Nature Blaziken, which isn't a speed boosting nature as you can tell, and at +1 after 120 EVs to speed, I outspeed Delphox, which is their second fastest thing on their team, just below Dust Lycanroc. But in terms of speed investment, it doesn't really matter as Lycanroc does have access to priority like Accelerock or Sucker Punch, although Accelerock is just a lot better. But yeah, I figured Mega Aggron, Thick Fat Assault Vest Hariyama could come in. Maybe Calm Mind recover Reuniclus with Psychic and Focus Blast to deal with Scrafty. And for my pick, I have Wall Breaking Gliscor. Wall Breaking Gliscor. For Licky Licky, this was supposed to be. It was almost supposed to be a Rest Talk set, but I forgot to slap on Sleep Talk onto it. So, especially defensive Licky Licky with mixed Blaziken with max special attack, with some attack investment as well, with Focus Blast, Hidden Power Ice to deal with Salamence, and a couple of physical moves to deal with Thick Fat Hariyama. I have Z Focus Blast. Even though Mega Aggron has really good physical defense, its special defense isn't that good. So with Z Focus Blast from a Rash Nature Blaziken, it OHKOs Mega Aggron even with a especially defensive set. Next up, I have Bulk Up Gallade with some defensive investments and a little bit of speed, with Bobberry Berry Comfey with Draining Kiss, Defog, Calm Mind. Out of this draft, the only thing with potential Hazard Setter is Mega Aggron, Rhydon, and Roserade. And Dust Lycanroc for Stealth Rock as well. So Defog is there. Calm Mind was to kind of deal with Reuniclus, sort of. And then for my last mon, we have defensive Quillfish with Intimidate, Pain Split, and some spikes. The majority, pretty much my opponent's draft, with the exception of Salamence, is grounded. And I felt like spikes would hurt my opponent's team more than Stealth Rocks, so this is why I brought Quillfish. And yeah, in a second I'll pull up the battle replay. So this is the replay for my week 1 battle against my opponents. Throughout the battle, I will be pausing it to explain my plays. If you don't like that, I can leave the link to the replay somewhere below. And looking at their team, I called half of it right. I did call the Hariyama, Mega Aggron, and Reuniclus. So I was pretty worried about it being thick, fat Assault Vest Hariyama. Salamence and Rhydon, I didn't expect them, but it made sense considering how Blaziken is such a big threat. And with Salamence, it gets access to Intimidate, so it can weaken Blaziken's offensive presence, and then Rhydon is just a natural tank. The Rotom wasn't really part of my opponent's original draft, so at some point they probably made a trade, and I just didn't know about it. But my lead of choice was Qwilfish. I feel like it matched up decently well against their team, with the exception of Rotom and Reuniclus. And I just wanted to get spikes early to start weakening their team. The only thing that wasn't effective with spikes was Salamence and Rotom, but Blaziken can easily handle them. Blaziken has Focus Blast and Overheat to deal with Rotom, or Ice to deal with Salamence. So here I just lead off with Qwilfish, as my opponent leads off with Rotom Frost, potentially predicting my Qwilfish play. This is a pretty bad spot I'm in turn 1, as my opponent can easily click either one of their stab moves. I could go Gliscor to predict the electric move, but I'd go for Comfey predicting, as I felt like it was just my better mid-ground play, as my opponent could have easily gone for an Ice Stab to predict Gliscor. And luckily I do get the play correct, and my opponent does miss, so Comfey is still at full HP. Here I go for the safe Draining Kiss play, as my opponent goes for Aggron. Now, I actually have Hidden Power Ground on Comfey, so had I predicted the Aggron coming in, I could have potentially either brought it down to Sturdy, or extremely weaken it to the point where it would still get knocked out by Hidden Power Ground, even after Mega Evolving, since it is quad weak to it. But I just went for the safe Draining Kiss play. And here I just go into Gliscor predicting a Steel move to want to come out as my opponent does Mega Evolve and show off the Autotomize. This was surprising. I didn't expect Autotomize Aggron, but it made sense considering that Jolly Max Speed Aggron could outpace Blaziken at +2 before Blaziken can really get going with speed boosts. So, pretty cool tech from my opponent. Here, I get the Toxic Orb off and I double into Qwilfish, again, to play it safe. I know Aggron can learn Avalanche, and I felt like my opponent had it to deal with Gliscor, as Gliscor is a pretty good physical wall for my team. And I do get the play correct as my opponent goes for Ice Punch. It's not Avalanche, but Avalanche, Ice Punch, it's the same thing. It's an ice coverage move to deal with Gliscor. And I do get the play correct, as here I go for Scald trying to fish for a burn, and I didn't get it, and of course Aggron outsped me. He's +2, possibly Jolly Nature with max speed. I have very little speed investment. That didn't work out, as here my opponent goes for Rotom as I go for Spike. What I probably should have done was probably go for Pain Split, in case my opponent wanted to stay in and further weaken it, because Qwilfish could take 1 Earthquake at the range of HP it was, but it couldn't take 2. Luckily I do get a layer spike and I can start weakening the rest of his team. I do go into Licky Licky. It is specially defensive at max HP, as my opponent does go for Volt Switch into Hariyama. Luckily I do get some chip, and my opponent reveals to have Flame Orb, and this was a bit of a relief for me, because with Flame Orb, this reveals that he was Guts. This not only revealed that he was Assault Vest to deal with Special Blaziken, but it also revealed that he was Guts over Thick Fat, so I didn't have to worry about trying to weaken Hariyama or playing around it. Since he is an offensive set, I can easily go into Comfey and I can go Comfey or Blizzcore and deal damage to it. As I do go Cool Fish, get the Intimidate off, as my opponent does go for the Close Combat. And defensive, -1, it's not really doing much. As here my opponent makes the double into Reuniclus. I go for the safe Bane Split to get the recovery, and I know for sure that this isn't Magic Guard Reuniclus since it did take damage from spikes. So I didn't have to worry about it potentially being like Recover, Calm Mind, Psychic, or Psyshock with Focus Blast. So this was pretty good for me as I just went into Comfey. Really good Spadef, can easily deal with Psychic as my opponent does go for Calm Mind. So he does pack Calm Mind, I do pack Calm Mind as well. And I decide to Calm Mind along with it as he goes for Psychic and I go for Draining Kiss. And Reuniclus is pretty bulky, so Reuniclus can easily deal with Comfey before I can really deal with Reuniclus. And here I decided to switch out of Comfey. I want to try to preserve it as it can deal with Salamence. As my opponent does go for Psychic and crits me on the switch-in, but I do go for Rest. This was supposed to be like a Rest Talk set, but I forgot about Sleep Talk. So here I'm just kind of like sacking Licky Licky because it doesn't really do much in this battle. This is probably like not the best play, as with me asleep, this entices my opponent to want to go for a Calm Mind. So predicting the Calm Mind, I could have gone into Mega Gallade and get off the Bulk Up and then go for Knock. But I opted to stay in as my opponent decides to go for Calm Mind and goes for Psychic again. And I get knocked out by the next turn, and here I decide to sack off Licky Licky. I go for Ice Punch, hoping for a freeze, but didn't happen, as this does allow me a free switch into Mega Gallade. Mega Gallade has really good special defense with, I believe, 115? With 115 special defense. So even at +2, with some HP investment, I can take a +2 Psychic. So this does give me a free bulk up off, as my opponent goes for Psychic. As you can see, +2 Psychic with the 188 investment in HP only did 87. So had I brought it in as it went for Calm Mind, I still kept Licky Licky as a potential sack later in the game, as well as a free bulk up. And luckily for me, since my opponent seems to be offensive, +1 knockoff, here knocked out Reuniclus, as this does allow my opponent free switch into Hariyama. I could have easily gone into Blizzcore, but I felt like I couldn't really use Gallade for anything else. Maybe Drain Punch the Rotom, since HP investment, really good Spadef, and a little bit of recovery. But I decided to sack off Mega Gallade, as it doesn't really do much. As my opponent reveals to be Bullet Punch, as I do go into Comfey, and here I do have Bobberry Berry, so I can easily live one hit, as it does 24 and it gives me a free Calm Mind. Here I decided to go for Calm Mind, and this also gives me a turn. I go for Draining Kiss, and because Hariyama has really good HP, Comfey recovers a lot to the point where it's outside of range of Bullet Punch. And so with that, Hariyama just drops. I guess my opponent doesn't have Defog, so I just go for Draining Kiss. Aggron comes in. Again, I want to preserve. So here again, I want to preserve Comfey as it can deal with Salamence. Here I go for Goldfish and try to go for a Scaldborn. As my opponent predicts that and goes for the Earthquake, which is a good play, it does 45. And I can take another as I go for Scald. And luckily I do get the burn this turn here, so I can go into I sack Quillfish. This allows me a free switch into Blaziken, as I know I can live ahead. I go for Knockoff, which is a bad play. What I should have done was gone for Earthquake. I thought with it being that low, it might have dropped to Knockoff, but clearly I was wrong. So Aggron's at 1 HP, and Blaziken takes pretty much unnecessary damage from Aggron, as it does get knocked out by Burn. As my opponent goes for Rhydon. Rhydon has really good physical defense, so I'm assuming he's supposed to take a hit from Blaziken. I'm assuming this is like a Violite and Pitch Nature at max HP, max defense. This would be a good answer to Blaziken if I wasn't mixed sets. So here I decided to go for Titanium Z, or Z Focus Blast. It was originally supposed to be for the Aggron, but since Aggron's gone, I don't really need it for anything else. And I'm assuming even if it was max HP, it just dropped. So Rhydon's gone, in come another speed boost, in comes Rotom. I do have Focus Blast, and well, there's a reason why we call it Focus Blast. As my opponent does go for Shadow Ball. Now, I'm Rash Nature, which is plus special attack minus special defense, so the Shadow Ball actually does hurt quite a bit. But luckily, I do connect the Focus Blast and knock out Rotom. I guess what I could have done was gone for Overheat, which has slightly better accuracy, but I didn't want to deal with the -2 special attack drop. As I do have Hidden Power Ice. As in comes Salamence after the speed boost, and he is Intimidate, but luckily for me, I do have Hidden Power Ice, and because I didn't go for Overheat, I still does a lot of damage. As it does 94%, as my opponent goes for Earthquake, and reveals to be a Life Orb set, so I weaken it to the point where it knocks itself out with Recoil, and I win the battle with a 2-0 victory in my favor. Even if my opponent didn't have, Life Orb, as long as they weren't like Yachi Berry, I think -2 Hidden Power Ice still put it within range of a neutral Draining Kiss from Comfey. But if not, I believe Gliscor could have potentially won me the game. But yeah, this was my week 1 battle. My draft battles were supposed to be on Ultra, but I don't have a working charger at the moment, so my week 1 had to be on Showdown. If I do, after I get my charger, I'm not sure if I'll be able to commentate them. I'll try, but I feel like with Showdown it's a lot easier for me to do these commentary things because the battles are faster, plus at any point in the battle I could pause it as much as I want, whereas with Ultra I can't pause it in-game. So for my future draft battles, I'll try to commentate them, but if not, or if they're on Ultra and I can't, then well, I tried. But yeah, pretty good week 1, so decent momentum going. 2-0 is a decent differential. I would have preferred 3 or 4, but winning's winning. But yeah, I'll see you guys for week 2.